Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this conference meeting. I would like to talk about a topic that is high on our agenda, and that's user involvement in research. And I guess a lot of you know our society, Norwegian Cancer Society. We are in the only national cancer society in Norway and one of the largest non-governmental organizations representing the cancer patients and their peers. We, as a patient organization, we meet patients and their relatives on different types of arenas. Social media is, of course, a very important arena. We have a user panel where we communicate with people that has been affected by cancer. And we also have different types of courses, meeting, and so on with cancer patients. In Norway, it's like almost 34,000 who gets cancer each year or are diagnosed with cancer. And of course, each of their experience is personal and different from the others. But we tried sort of to represent the total voice of cancer patients in Norway. So, why include patient in research? And the first and foremost is to say that it's sort of a goal in itself. You're doing research on patients, and then patients also should be included in the research. If you go to more cause-oriented factors, we say that often when you involve patient in research, you also make sure that you also focus on the right things that are important for the cancer patients or the patients in general. And also, patients' involvement could cause better research by they can give you advice on research question, design, and also analysis. And also the last thing that is, I think, also is highly important, that include patient in research often make it more easier to implement the research into clinical practice, because it's often amazing to see a lot of studies, how long it takes from the research is there until it gets implemented and get general practice in a clinic. So this is something I borrowed from the University of Oslo. I think it's far too small for you to see, but important is that you have if you divide the research process in different areas, you have the planning and execute project and also the dissemination. It could be possible to include patients in all of these areas. But as you see, there will be some areas where there might not be natural to involve patient. For example, when it comes to what has been done before of research. Also, of course, to publish articles is not necessary what the patient representative should do. But as you see, there is a lot of areas where the patients can have a role when it comes to research. Just to give you some small examples, and I have borrowed this from our organization in UK, Cancer Research UK. But this is an example from PPI, patient and public involvement, how this was used in a study on pre-surgery systematic therapy trials for kidney cancer. And here were they also, thanks to patient and involvement, they also included an extra endpoint into the study, and they also made changes in the language and introduction to the study. This is another example. They did a study why didn't so many people meet up for bowel cancer screening as the other screening programs. And then it was important when you sort of involved the patient, the users, they also focused on this about the emphasis to address people's fear when they're doing this kind of study. And also they help when it comes to shorten the documentation and the language which was used to inform the user of this study. So this is just two small examples on how it can be important and how you can use patients' involvement. And also, this is also an example from England, because I think if there is something we can learn from UK is that they have longer experience and have better systems to also include patients into their study. So this is a report that was done, I think it was in 2006, where they were looking about the impact of involving patients and the population in research. And in general, they identified these like 4 topics, 4 conclusions. First and foremost, and that's important, that the involvement in patients and the population could increase recruitment, which is of course important when you're doing studies. And they also found that it was a specific effect when it comes to qualitative research and also when it comes to clinical trials. But this was also often when they sort of started more and more by introducing patients into studies. This was also those areas where I think this has been the highest focused on. Because I think, like also been from this opinion, because we do meet a lot into the cancer area, of course, a lot of people that are doing basic research, and they say we can understand that we should include patients when we're doing clinical studies and studies of cancer care and so on, but I'm doing like basic research, so I can't have any use of patients in my studies. And I think, as it also is stated here, that's wrong. I think also people doing like more basic research could have a good need to also include users into their research. So just to try to give some ideas what we tell the researchers that they should think about when they want to include researchers. They should, when they would like to include users in research. And first and foremost is how would you like to include patients? Do you want like more a patient panel? Would you do a survey? Would you do or would you have like a patient representatives in your study? And it is of course also very important to talk about in what area of your research, what should be the role of the user involvement. Is there in specific phases you think you will have use of the patients involving? And I think it's also very important, and you also like you clarify expectation from both partners. And also I think it's smart, and my advice is also to have an open mind about what actually, to ask the patients that are involved what could be their role. So is it of course important also to provide information about your research and also sort of the context of the research that should be taken from. And as it is in all types of collaboration, when you collaborate with other researchers, it is of course important to build relationship and trust. And also one thing that many researchers out of experience have forgotten, it's also to keep the user updated on further process. For example, if the users are involved in the beginning of a research study, it's important to also keep them updated about the results. And then I also think it's important to help to evaluate patients' involvement and also sort of lessons learned from each project. So I think what I'm saying is that it's important to do some planning when it comes to involvement of patients, because I must admit we often get like to the Norwegian Cancer Society, I get like some desperate emails on Friday, and it's from some researchers and saying that the application date is on Sunday and we need some user involvement in this research application. And of course that's not a very good process, even if we try to do what we can to help. So way forward, even as an advocate for user involvement in research, it's also important to admit that this is still work in progress. We're learning experience while we're walking. We're happy to see that more and more researchers would like to include users in their research. I think that's really, really good. But I see we still need in some areas to stress the importance about the need for user involvement. So we see still we would like to give our help both to the researchers and also to the users to understand the roles, the needs for competence often the user are asking us for. And I think also it should be better, we need to establish better systems to secure recruitment of motivated users, because we know a lot of patients we meet that would like to be a part, they would like to do something, they would like to be included in research, but it's often sort of to connect the research project and potential users. And today there doesn't exist any really good systems, so that's something we also work on. And also then, of course, lastly, we need still to evaluate. We need to find a good examples on what is working when it comes to user involvement. We also have to learn from the experience where it doesn't work, so we don't have to do the same mistake twice. So that was sort of my message. I hope that you also find it interesting and that you also would like in your further research to include the users and the patients into your research areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Ole Alexander? Yeah, Arnoldo, just wait, I will run.
Thank you, Alexander. You know, here in the audience, you have many mathematicians and statisticians and engineers who have, yes, we have met cancer patients, but we have never met cancer patients that we didn't know. So the distance between us and the clinics is much bigger than the distance between the clinics and the clinicians, the researchers that work at the Radium Hospital and so on. So I think that we have to invent something a little bit more specific for this part of the research that really wants to do something that has impact for cancer patients, but we are traditionally educated far away from it. Yeah. So that distance is bigger. And maybe you should invite us to come and visit Kreftforening and so that we learn each other to know each other better. I think we need something special for us. Because it is a little bit too abstract so far. I like what you say, and we should try to do it, but it's still a little bit too abstract, right? Because I still do things, I'm a bit humble. My work, is it really so important for a cancer patient? Do I really want to bother him with this story? You have to help me to understand that it is like this. Yeah.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah, it's a really good comment, and I think that it's really interesting because also for us as a supporter of cancer research, you're sort of a kind of new profession when it comes to doing cancer research. But I think, and as I see it, I'm very happy that sort of your profession, because I've heard about some of the studies you've been doing, and I think they definitely would come to use for cancer patients and would make better treatment in the future for cancer patients. But I totally agree. So that's a good question, and maybe we could do something like that, that we could sort of inform each other and also get more examples of how users can be involved also in this kind of research and what we can do for each other.
Anyone else? No, I actually had almost the same question as Arnoldo. How to get hold of the patients? I mean, should you just stand outside Radium Hospital? Hi, I'm a researcher. Yeah. Would you like to join me?
Yeah, that was because I think that it's a very good point how to sort of find the patients when you need them, and that's something we will do. Try to do at least to get more connected with, for example, a panel of people that would really like to be involved in research and have their patients' experience. So it would be much more easier for us as well to contact them when we talk, so we can have this position as something you can come to us. That's my ambition and hope, and we can help you to find the right patient for your studies. And unfortunately, I must admit that today we are not there. We have some patients, but we need also to have a better system for doing this. So.